It's great to see you all here and ready to learn. ILP acknowledges the terrible people, the traditional custodians of the land on which our Brisbane offices are located, and we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. To close out our first day, it's my pleasure to welcome Karina Calder, leadership and wellbeing development expert and founder of Gather Leadership. Karina has led teams and coached leaders across some of the world's largest organizations, including Deloitte, ANZ, CVA, and more. With experience both as an internal head of learning and an external advisor, she brings practical, real-world insights into building high-performance, healthy cultures. Please join me in giving Karina a warm virtual welcome. Over to you, Karina.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that welcome. And thank you to ILP for the opportunity to run the session today. I'm really excited to discuss with you how you can use learning as a lever to help you drive better business outcomes. Before we jump in, I'd love to hear more about you. This is a quick Mentimeter, so really easy one for you to do on your phone if you just wanted to grab that QR code. I've also popped a link into the chat, or you can just go to menti.com and use that code. The answers are completely anonymous. It's a short survey, just 5 quick questions, and I'll pick a couple of results to show through the session as well.
Karina, I think you may need to share.
I do need to share. Thank you, Berenice. Fabulous. Can everyone see my screen now? Great. So as I said, welcome. If you wanted to grab that QR code on the screen, that will take you to a really quick survey. It's anonymous, but I will gather some results and show you that through the session. Or you can go to that menti.com or the link in the chat. All right, fantastic. So Gather Leadership was created because I believe everyone deserves great leadership. Emotionally intelligent, caring, and inspirational leaders and more is what you can achieve through your leadership development programs. So thank you as you fill in the Menti. I'm also keen to get an idea of who we've got in the room. So if you wouldn't mind dropping a note in the chat, just where you're located and one thing you are hoping to get from the session. So we've got Melbourne. Welcome, Adam. Hi, Natasha. Sydney, Gippsland, Sale, Perth, Brisbane. Brilliant. Yeah, and some great reasons there as well. So looking to improve existing leadership programs or learn some new ideas. So we're going to have a lot of info to run through today. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat as we go, unmute and ask me. And we'll also have time for Q&A at the end, so I can make sure I get to those. All right, so today's takeaways, I'm going to show you a framework for approaching discussions about your programs. It's not your traditional 8-step instruction design or ADDIE methodology. Instead, it's a flexible, holistic approach that's easy to remember and you can use for stakeholder discussions when designing or reviewing your program. You can also apply this framework for any meeting or project. We'll work through a list of considerations, and at the end of the session, I'll provide a summary of what we've covered in a practical checklist for you. So don't worry, it'll all be summarised and this session is recorded. Feel free to email me if you have trouble accessing any of the links provided at the end. As mentioned in the introduction, I'll just tell you a little bit more about the programs I've been involved with. Here's some examples of the more recognisable organisations I've had the privilege of working with. And I've been in both in-house head of learning, talent, leadership development roles, where I've led that learning strategy and program management. I've also worked as an external consultant, so facilitating programs involved in the design, implementation, and the management. So it's important to know I don't show you this list to impress you, but I show it to impress upon you that I've seen what not only makes programs work, but what makes them award-winning because of the transformation that happens to participants. I've also been part of some amazing programs that had all the bells and whistles, looked really impressive, were great fun to be part of, but they didn't actually shift behavior or achieve what they set out to achieve. And it's all those learnings that I'm going to bring you today. So let's explore some factors that really create impact for your participants. I mentioned we'll be using a framework. Does anyone recognize where this framework is from? Feel free to pop it in the chat or call it out. All right, so it comes from whole brain thinking, or HBDI, so Ned Herman's brain dominance instrument. And what we're going to do is use this to explore 4 quadrants in relation to your leadership programs. What I love about this framework is you can start anywhere and it helps you harness diverse perspectives, so not just your own. We all tend to have preferences for how we like to think and take in information and problem solve, how we like to run meetings and make decisions. And what it means is we can overplay and overlook some areas due to our individual thinking preferences. So in terms of L&D, some people you might be aware they absolutely love the big picture. They love the strategy rather than the practical detail of how you're going to implement the program. Other learning practitioners love to focus on the content or the what will be covered. So the theory, the frameworks, without actually considering the who and adapting to their needs. So this whole brain thinking walk around we'll use today will give you that comprehensive design process. And if you want to find anything any more about this, HBDI, your own preferences, please do reach out. Absolutely love using these profiling tools alongside DISC, Myers-Briggs, emotional intelligence. They're all fantastic. All right, so let's jump into why. If we zoom out for a moment and think about that bigger picture and context, why do you want to have a leadership development program? Could you paint a picture or a vision of how your leaders are going to look in 12 to 18 months' time? So, what are leaders doing, saying, feeling that's different? How is the program supporting organisational strategy? And what's the larger impact you are seeking for it to have? It's also about exploring all the possibilities. So apply a bit of design thinking principles. If you didn't have the restrictions of time, money, budget, resources, so all those practicalities or realities, how could you design learning and development differently to reach your vision? So try and play with ideas, be creative, think about possibilities. And once you're clear on the purpose of your program, it'll then assist you with how you measure your success. Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve and get return on investment? And just a tip, if you are thinking of entering into learning awards, knowing or being able to demonstrate that impact, return on investment, or showing that you achieved what you set out to achieve is a really great way to kind of give you that head start. So begin with the end in mind. All right, so let's hear from you. Here was the mentee. I asked you, what is the key purpose of your leadership development program? So you can see some results there. Coaching, growth, to have one, capability. You can see there's many reasons to have a learning and development program, a leadership development program, but one I commonly hear is we don't have one and we need one because our people expect it. So essentially that baseline professional development expectations. And it also adds an attractive EVP for recruitment, so employee value proposition. So really common themes about why organisations want a program. I know I've been tasked with creating or tailoring programs off the back of organisational development initiatives that have highlighted areas for improvement. So, for example, engagement survey results are down and a key lever is direct manager involvement. So the program needs to have some capability uplift in communication, connection to strategy. You might have some data around retention and exit surveys that show certain demographics need support. Or you might have leadership 360-degree feedback, which highlights issues around communication or needing support with coaching. So ultimately, all these programs are designed to help your leaders be better. Just be really clear at what you're trying to get them better at. And the clearer you are at the start, the easier it will be to make decisions along the design process. You'll also need to build a business case for investing in your leaders. So I've got another quick poll here. I'm just going to launch. And I'm interested to know what impact you think your leaders have on workplace relationship satisfaction. Can everyone see that poll? We're at about 60% participation. I'll give it a few more seconds. Great, 90%. 3 more seconds. Let's see what you came up with. Beautiful. So hopefully you can see the results there. The majority of you thought it was 86% of workplace satisfaction, which is huge. For the rest of you, you might be surprised. It actually is. 86% of workplace relationship satisfaction comes down to leaders. So employees don't leave organizations, they leave leaders. And those relationships with managers and leaders are the strongest driver of employee wellbeing and satisfaction. Compare that to 14% of peers. So that comes from McKinsey. This is a key reason why it's worth investing in your leaders. And when people trust their leaders and feel supported, engagement, performance, and retention also lift. So as a learning and development manager or a chief learning officer, this conversation's probably pretty familiar. You'll get pushback on investment in cost of learning systems, participant and leader time out of the business, facilitators, venue hire, catering, travel, having a program manager, admin support. So if you want to be seen as a strategic leader in learning, be ready to discuss cultural and financial impacts that your program will have at that organisational level and back it up with data. So let me demonstrate a simple example of ROI of a program using these statistics. For every additional leader you retain, you are saving their salary or more every year because skills they learn help retain their team, and you're saving their team member salaries in replacement costs too. It's usually easy to track this data and demonstrate the impact to help support the business case for your programs. For example, if we took an average salary of 100,000 to make it easy to calculate, and let's take a conservative replacement cost of 100% of annual salary, if your program was able to retain one additional employee, you are saving their salary, which is $100,000. So you can see there the very tangible impact these programs can have and can support that investment in learning. I'll just show you these statistics as well in terms of the team impact, which clearly, if you invest in your leaders, they are more likely to stay, and so are their teams. So learning and development is really a lever for organisational performance and productivity. So that's the why. Are there any questions at this point? All right. Let's jump into what. So essentially, this is looking at what content you should have in a program. And as I said, all of these questions will be in the takeaway document at the end, so no stress to get them all down. Think about what you want your participants to learn and to experience. So there's some essential content that you'll see in all leadership development programs, those core leadership capabilities. And you can ask ChatGPT for those, and it'll tell you it's things like giving feedback, delegation, difficult conversations. Likely, you'll also undertake training needs analysis, focus groups, surveys, 101s, and stakeholder feedback and consultation as well. So try and consult as widely as you can and look at as much data as you can to support your program. Things like performance reviews, 360 feedback, and engagement surveys. I'm keen to know from you, what are the top 3 essential elements that you think a leadership development program must have? So if you want to share this in the chat as well, what are the musts from you? Yeah, so collaborative learning, capability, having difficult conversations and feedback, skills development, mindset, so moving on from being that individual contributor, networking, team.
It looks like Karina might have frozen.
Uni where you'll be sitting an exam and being tested on everything a leader needs to know should have a really practical application focus. So what you cover needs to help them when they need it, make it as accessible and flexible as possible and tailor to their needs. Here's some other topics as well. So would you add into these things like technical, compliance, or AI? It's really common for IT, HR, marketing, and finance to usually ask, hey, can you just pop in our compliance training to your leadership program? And this is where it comes back to, well, what's the purpose of your program? And any additional requests on top of that, just think about maybe they go in your broader learning journey, but maybe not your leadership program. A mistake I also see other learning practitioners make is cramming as much content or topics in as possible to the program and trying to be everything to everyone. So decide what's essential and consider having optional additional learning for people who are really keen to extend. I always have a kick-off session with the participants to provide a program overview, learning objectives, and get them really excited and engaged. And during this, I'll include a survey and ask them what they're most looking forward to as part of the program. So consider your answer to that previous question I asked. Interestingly, the top responses from participants I see are consistently networking. And by that, they mean with other peers, leaders, role models, because being a leader can be really isolating. Connecting with others. And if I dig into that, they mean human interaction. So feeling of belonging to a community of like minds and experiences. People have digital fatigue, and humans have cognitively evolved to learn from other humans, not computers. So they love connecting with other humans, building relationships, and this means building that support crew to help their career. So cross-divisional, meeting people from operational support, maybe industry exposure, finding sponsors, mentors, and coaches. And finally, understanding myself better. So that work style, maybe getting some feedback, perceptions others have of them, and how they can improve. So it's really important to sense check your content with participants at the start and be prepared to flex to each cohort's needs. Any surprising things about those top 4 that people wanted to comment on? That experience for you. So not a lecturer, not an entertainer, not a coach, not an event organizer. So just make sure you've got those skills in your team as well, or seek them out externally. I can see a few comments coming through. Yeah, lots of connections to others and definitely a theme of people. Please do include self-awareness in your program. Some leaders need that really big wake-up call that, hey, not everyone thinks like you or appreciates your strength of direct, critical, analytical approach. Some people might prefer a more relational, warm, friendly, emotionally sensitive approach. So profiling tools like you can see on screen, this is HBDI, can be a really simple way to achieve this self-awareness. There are many other team tools out there. So DISC is another favorite of mine, those 4 quadrants, easy to digest and debrief, either individually or as a team. And the other thing that's really useful with these 4 quadrants or team wheels is that you can stand participants in a room at opposite ends to visually demonstrate the point that people are not like you, but also diversity is really important for a fully functioning, innovative, and productive team. You can also use information like this as a data point to highlight strengths and support the needs for areas of development. So for this team in particular, you can see they underplay innovation, risk-taking, and relational aspects. So those yellow and red. And so the program designed for them really heavily stretched them into the yellow design thinking, strategic thinking, and innovation, and also the red coaching, relationships, and developing their emotional intelligence. If you're seeking a 180 or 360-degree feedback tool, there's also emotional intelligence, EQI 2.0. It's another favorite of mine I love to use, but there's heaps out there. And Adam's actually running a really in-depth session on this topic during the week as well. Adam, I can see that you're there. Which day is that? Is that Thursday that you're running that?
It's actually tomorrow afternoon in this time slot.
Beautiful. So there's a plug for Adam.
Thanks very much.
All right, let's have a look at examples of structuring content in a program. So this is a really common structure, having those 3 areas and participants first looking inside themselves to gain that self-awareness, before then learning about others and how to adapt to them. There's also a strategic alignment component there, and the more senior a leader gets, there may be more focus there. Just a note with leading others, leadership's not determined by how many direct reports a person has or a formal title. There are absolutely leaders who don't have direct reports, but might be responsible for influencing and guiding others towards a shared goal. So, for example, a recent leadership program I had a very experienced accounts receivable, payable person who had a huge stakeholder management responsibilities in that role. And everything from the leadership development program they were able to apply. Or you might have a technical expert, the one legal expert in the firm who's absolutely critical to strategy and delegates to outsource suppliers. They might be another person as well. So this example format is really common for first-time leaders. And new manager training, you might work through 3 blocks of content, 1 block per month in the first 90 days of a new manager's promotion or hire to role. Another common structure I see, sorry, was there a question? Another common structure I see is Patrick Lencioni's 5 functions of a team. I worked on a large program with experienced leaders with the purpose of lifting their team performance. So we use this structure over 6 months, and we work through 1 function of the model per month, starting at the bottom. And they were asked to then apply that to their team. And we put a 6th capstone module on to bring it all together. And that was really effective with assessments to see the team progress from start to end. So your why or program purpose will really help determine the content and how to structure it. They're just two really simple examples. So let's jump into the how, because all of this is good in theory, but now we need to deal with the realities and the logistics. So when you see this list of questions, and as I said, this is in a takeout at the end, this is the skill of program or project management. And it can be really overwhelming, but you want to try and keep it simple for yourself and also your participants. So thinking about your structure, is it a once and done program? Is it part of an ongoing learning journey? Is it maybe a 6 to 12 month longitudinal program? Or is there just a 2-week new promote program that repeats annually with the promotion process? Is there micro learning to help with habits? Can participants enter the program and return at any time? Or is there a set entry timeline to your programs? Thinking of the push and the pull as well, will participants be requested to attend the program? So are they pushed or forced? Or will there be an application process, so pulled or seeking out to attend? And how transparent is the program? Who's on it? Is it celebrated? Is it exclusive? How much also do you push and pull content? So are they spoon-fed or do you leave it up to them? Do you offer extended content options for the really keen ones, but just essentials to the stretched ones who want the bare minimum? With digital fatigue as well, what I've seen is a big shift back to face-to-face components. So offsites or getting in a room for connection and maintaining people's attention away from their emails. You also need to consider where are your participants if you're going to go down that route. So your geographical spread, restrictions on when they can take time out of the business. Have you got venue availability? If you are planning some offsites, you need to be planning potentially 6 months in advance just to be able to lock in some venues. And then how will the program be supported by leaders? So think about your RACI. So who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed? You should involve leaders and participants so that they're kept up to date and they can reinforce that learning transfer for you as well. And then finally, who's actually going to deliver it? So how will it be delivered? Do you have those skills in-house or do you need to go external? How much control do you want over that? You might have a faculty approach with a number of different specialists, different voices, different role models, which has lots of coordination, but potentially a great result. And as I said, take skill to create that psychologically safe learning experience where a community can speak up, connect, and collaborate at their best. So I'll just check in there. Any questions at all? I know that's a lot of info. All right. So I can see there's one question in the chat. I might save that one until the end with focus groups. Yeah, and group, cohort, or individual. Oh, they're really, really good questions. Oh, so often leaders and people will have time to participate in running focus groups. Oh, will not have time to participate in running focus groups. So what you can do is, run surveys, one-on-ones, but ideally you would run those focus groups and have a pilot program as well. But I can delve into that more at the end with the Q&A. And what tends to work best, group, cohort, or individual coaching, really depends on that experience of the leader that you're talking about. Group cohorts are great for people early on in their leadership journey because then they learn from others, whereas that individual coaching might be for your more experienced executives who are much more targeted and need that implementation. So some great questions coming up there. A trap L&D managers do fall into is trying to be everything to everyone and try and do everything, including the facilitation and the program management. Then the whole program becomes single point dependent on them. So be careful of that. Program management is a huge logistical role, and it takes a team of people to put on a fantastic learning experience. So just be careful trying to do it all. Is that the business cutting costs and you need to push back? Or is that your ego that you want to do it all? If you get sick tomorrow, what happens? And getting stakeholder buy-in in those early stages is crucial to support implementation of your program. So always think about your internal marketing and promotion, seeking out sponsors, supporters, and celebrating all of your successes as well. Just a couple of other concepts on the how. Learners forget up to 70% of newly learned content in 24 hours unless the content is reflected on. So reflection is where a lot of the learning and impact happens. And it's important to create that space for reflection with peers or self. And that's the reason I really love a longitudinal program over 4 weeks, 3 months, 6 months plus. Those skills take time to develop. So offsites and immersives really provide that opportunity for different environment to be able to step back and reflect. And I find the best discussions happen day 2 onwards because people have had a chance to reflect, integrate, think about it overnight. So have a think about how you can incorporate that concept into your structure as well. And you are probably all familiar with the 3E model. Leadership skills take time to develop with that hands-on experience. So really important that they're applying it on the job, exposure to role models, mentors, coaches, not just learning the theory. So think about how to integrate those education elements along the way and provide the space to reflect with their leaders or a coach for exposure. So that question about is one-on-one coaching good? Look, it can be really effective to get people into habits and accountability, but I really love group cohorts so that they can learn from each other and have that supportive environment as well. The other thing I'd say is participants tend to be more open about their team challenges and without fear of repercussions from HR when you use external facilitators or if you're off-site. So there is something about being away from the office that they do tend to open up and be more honest as well. So with all of that in mind, here are some ideas of different delivery methods. Think about async opportunities to provide that flexibility. And by async, what I mean is that is asynchronous. It is self-paced. They can access it when it suits them and their time zone, compared to synchronous, which means real-time scheduled group learning together, which is really good for high engagement, but you might want to just provide those opportunities for async flexibility. So can it be recorded like we're doing now and picked up at a later time? Think about what needs to be compulsory. Is there something optional? But there's lots of different options for how people can learn. And I'll just give you a quick example. I recently designed a program for senior leaders in a medium-sized firm, and we had a new partner hire who attended. They had come from a really large known second-tier firm. And I told them that, look, you've probably seen all this content before. It's going to be a repeat of your experience, but it's a great opportunity for you to go along, build your network, and understand our training offering, and maybe even give us some feedback on how we can improve it. So please attend. They attended the first 2 days of what was a 9-month program and said it was the best training he'd ever attended in his life. And when I asked why, it was really clear it was the learning design. So their prior firm had sat 150 leaders in a lecture theatre for 3 days with a thick workbook and talked at them. They did pair sharing and that was about it. And that was considered executive education. When I design programs, there is a large focus on learning from others and, make it interactive, get them up and moving, practical application, reflection, discussions. So let's bring all this together in an example. This is a 6-month program. It could be 6 weeks, could be 12 months, depending on your need. Think about how long people have to get up to speed in their role, busy seasons to work around, what's your budget, number of participants, and if you've got promotion or hiring timelines as well. And then select a cadence. So for example, I've spread out one learning activity each week. You can see pre-work, then a workshop the following week, post-work to implement it, and some coaching, which might be one-on-one coaching, or it might be those smaller 3s, 5s group coaching. Once you've got a cadence, it's predictable and participants know what to expect. So then you can repeat that, say, over 6 months, and you might have some underlying team project, industry events, networking, cross-functional shadowing going on as well. So you want to make these as async as possible for that accessibility. However, consider your learning culture as well. So do you actually need to kind of drag people along to an event to keep them accountable? And then you might need to change what they are. If you are seeking to build relationships, then those face-to-face elements are really important for that. So you could add in offsites, a launch, capstone events with certificates and celebrations, and get their manager or leader involved. It all depends on your budget and your circumstances. So you can see that there is no one size fits all. And to give you another example, one of the most intensive large programs I've been part of focused on cultural change in a large financial services business after COVID. And we put 750 leaders through a 6-month program concurrently. So at the same time, taking them out of the business for workshops a couple of hours every week in a format like this for 6 months. It was a really large facilitation team. We had over 60 cohorts of 10 to 12 people in each cohort. So that kind of program is a multi-million-dollar investment for that organisation, and they recognised they needed to quickly lift performance, engagement and retention. So that's why they did it. They were able to achieve increased market share due to that program. Brilliant and effective ROI, and absolutely great fun to be part of as a team of facilitators as well. All right, so we've covered the why, the what, the how, and you've heard a lot. Keen for you to pop your insights in the chat. How could you change the way your program is currently delivered? And Martin, I can see you've got a question there about measurement. I'll talk about measurement briefly at the end. So how could you change the way your program is delivered? Yeah, thank you. So having better cadence, collaborating and including more stakeholders, more asynchronous content. Yeah, all L&D is decentralized at the moment, so centralizing it. More work based on projects, so how they're actually going to enforce that. Great. Yeah, and focus groups as well as stakeholder relationships. Fantastic. Feel free to keep sending those through on the chat. And we'll finally take a look at who. So At the end of the day, you are dealing with human learners and you are designing for them, with them in mind and their benefit. So I truly believe you create an experience, you make it as attractive as you can, and it's up for them to step in and get the most out of it. So identify who are the participants in each program, how will they be divided into cohorts? How will they be identified and qualified? So is there maybe an application process, or is it just based on when they hit a certain role? And who's going to determine that? Have you identified roles and responsibilities? So the program manager, designer, LMS administrator, facilitator, they're all various different skill sets, and it's unreasonable to expect one person to do it all. And who else needs to be informed? How might that occur? So your stakeholders, sponsors should be treated like a client and kept up to date. So all of that internal marketing of how amazing the program is going and how they can help. So let them know the program dates so they can also help you create engagement. Optimal learner experience, using that learner-centered and inclusive design principles. A great person to follow on this on LinkedIn is Shaheen, who's our Sydney ILP regional advocate, and they're presenting on Thursday. So yeah, if you want to learn more about inclusive learner design. And then really thinking through each activity, how are you going to split people up to make the most of relationship building opportunity? So people do tend to band together with people they know or that are like them. And I deliberately mix people up and challenge their perspective with predetermined groups. Are there opportunities to pair people up from outside their industry experience, outside their office, or just, with different life experience as well? How are you going to ensure that psychological and psychosocial safety so they feel safe to speak up and contribute? So thinking about who they're in a room with, the power imbalances, and also let the facilitator know of any dynamics to be aware of. Diversity considerations. I just wanted to highlight a couple close to my heart. So disability, ask your learners if there's anything the facilitator or program manager should be aware of, just as that you would ask for dietary requirements. There's a lot of hidden disabilities out there that you wouldn't know of unless you ask. I'm a parent of a type 1 diabetic, and I know greatly how it can greatly impact her ability to learn, but it's hidden. And neurodiversity, also as a neurodiverse parent, there are lots of different ways to learn, lots of different ways we take in information and demonstrate your learning. So this is where that flexibility and individualization is also really important. So minimizing maybe sensory overload, considering cognitive load via chunking of work, support tools, the ability to have breaks. Caring responsibilities, the other really big one I want people to think about, because leaders more often than not are at a stage of life with a lot going on. So whether it is caring for a child, a partner, a parent, or their own personal health issues, financial stress, grief and loneliness, they have a big life outside of work. So if you're running face-to-face training, consider starting at 9:15 for a 9:30 start, because it gives people time to get there. They're not fighting with traffic. And particularly if you're dealing with primary carers, they're not trying to change their routine to get there earlier than would usually be expected. And leaders actually appreciate that time for closing off emails before training as well. Similarly, if you're going to hold a networking session, try and make that inclusive and within work hours. I actually really like to finish core content by about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And that last hour is maybe reflection opportunities, peer coaching, post-work with flexible timing. Because if people are cognitively done, they can then pick it up later. Just a couple of other examples. I've had a participant start one of my 12-month leadership programs and announce 1 month in that she was pregnant and said, "Oh, I better drop out then because I can't complete it." And I said, "Absolutely not. You are more than welcome to continue on with this cohort as much as you want to. And then you are welcome to enter the next cohort, and you'll have the benefit of 2 networks. I know it'll be clunky, but you shouldn't be disadvantaged just because you gave us 6 months notice that you're going to leave. And if someone resigned, would probably only get 1 month's notice. So just thinking about what flexibility have people got. Another example is I had someone return from maternity leave with twins, and she found it very difficult to get away for off-site components. We didn't want to hold back her leadership development, so came up with other ways for her to participate with more individualized coaching and setting up one-on-one networking opportunities. So really think about who you've got in your cohort and how you can adapt the cohort, the content and the connection to work for them. Finally, I just wanted to add a note on setting up your learners for success through optimal human learning. This is a personal passion of mine, how to achieve cognitive performance through optimal well-being. So a couple of things you want to check is motivation and goal setting. Do your participants align to the why of the program? Are they excited to be there? Or do you need to do some work around that? Have you created that space for safety? A lot of that work happens before they even get into the training event, so that they're prepared and ready to share and learn. Will they move? So if it's face-to-face, reflection walks, movement in activities, or will they sit for a full 8 hours? I love running leadership retreats, which integrate hiking, yoga, reflection walks for this reason. And please respect sleep and circadian rhythm. So if participants need to fly interstate, which I see a lot of, is it possible that they fly the night before, so they're not getting up at 2 a.m.? Or if you're in a remote venue, can you start a bit later or run it on a Monday and entice people to get themselves there earlier? So, you know, what you might be saving on $300 accommodation to get someone to fly in that day, you might lose out on a whole day of program learning because the participant's too tired to learn. And that one at the top, nutrition. If your leaders are the Ferrari of your business, what food and drink are you fueling them with? I know we've got a lot of facilitators on the session. Are you seeing this as common fuel at your training days? The coffee, the sugar, the alcohol? I'm curious to know. So these are liver loaders that result in that 3 a.m. wake up. And, you know, I just wonder, how can you be high performance when you've impacted adrenaline, cortisol, inflammation, brain fog, liver, and sleep? If you have the opportunity, please don't scrimp on food. Caterers will absolutely try and give you the cheapest possible for their margins. See what alternatives you can get. And the good old Mentos with their artificial sweeteners can negatively impact our gut health, and so does all the sugary treats. I know as a facilitator, people usually laugh about, oh, who's got the post-lunch slot? And that's usually the most difficult one because of this. So leader wellbeing is the biggest driver of organisational wellbeing and business success. Think about the salaries you pay each of these leaders. One of the best investments you can make is showing them how to look after themselves for cognitive performance and longevity. So when you're thinking catering, I really want you to think about those health retreat vibes, the Gwynganas, Golden Door, Eden Retreat. Your people should return better as a result of your training programs, learning to look after not only their teams, but their physical bodies and health as well. Leadership wellbeing is a personal passion of mine, so feel free to reach out if I'd love to chat about that. And conscious of time, this is the final thing I wanted to talk about, which was measuring impact. Just thinking about how are you going to measure success? Mark Vollmer's diving into this on Thursday, if you wanted to grab his session. But looking at this, at Kilpatrick's 4 levels of measurement, how can you improve your measures and really aim for that level 4 connection to results, those organisational results? I'll just give you this example. This shows data, but also tells a story. So instead of looking at, we had this many leaders complete a session, you could compare participants to a control group. So this, for example, after 6 months of the program, participating leaders reported 50% increase in coaching conversations. If you look at that 20% increase in retention, you can quantify that. So quantify that with the replacement costs and people's salaries, and you can very quickly demonstrate some financial return on investment. All right, so we've covered a lot today. Thank you so much for your time. I will open it up to Q&A for those that need to take off. I'll also, here are the resources. So grab that QR code on screen.
But Karina, before I hand back over to you, I just want to say thank you for all these practical, insightful, such an insightful session. You've given a very clear framework around the why, the what, the how, and the who. And it's given us a very powerful lens for creating real impact and performance. I especially loved what you had, it resonated with me, what you had to say about the food. I really value the focus you had on strategy, inclusion, and learning transfer. So thank you for sharing all your expertise with our L&D community and for closing out today's session so strongly. I do need to thank Remote Reviewer for sponsoring our event, and of course to everyone for being a part of today's conversation.